Tenemos que hacer algo en el mundo para que todos puedan comer los alimentos que más los nutran y verlos felices al crecer.
¡Hey! Este futuro se está escapando, en nuestras manos está la solución. Pues luchemos por los que menos tienen, contra el hambre y la malnutrición. ¡Hey! ¡Hey! Por eso baila, baila, baila conmigo y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. En tus manos tienes, mi buen amigo, una mejor vida y mejor nutrición. Por eso baila, baila sonriente y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Con mejor producción y mejor medio ambiente lograremos una buena nutrición.
En esta comunidad específicamente, no todas las mujeres tienen acceso a la educación, tanto media general o universitaria. Casi la mayoría de las mujeres llegan hasta sexto grado. Esto no nos abre las puertas para acceder a otros tipos de empleo. FAO nos ha permitido crecer a través de las diferentes capacitaciones, atenciones que hemos recibido y también fortalecer la parte de los medios de vida.
También las formaciones en cada una de las producciones que hay aquí, en cada uno de los rubros que hay. El de avícola, el de siembra, está el de pesca, que también se hizo la formación de hacer chorizos de pescado y sobre todo el de artesanía a la cual pertenezco.
Hemos recibido mucho la capacitación acá, recibimos el kit que es de siembra, de rebaño, recibimos el kit de artesanía, de electromecánico.
Que hemos sido beneficiados por la FAO y por la SER, que el impacto ha sido grande a nivel de todos, mejorar la calidad de vida porque tienen con qué producir, hay un movimiento económico y la gente está haciendo cada uno de sus oficios.
Represento a un oficio que es muy bonito, que es la cría de ovejos y caprinos. La mayoría son mujeres, somos ama de casa, somos esposas, somos trabajadoras, somos maestras, somos administradores. En lo que es marketing o la promoción del producto, a llevar eso, a conocer el producto.
Y hemos pensado también hacer nuestras páginas para que nos conozcan a nivel internacional, comercializar todas esas artesanías que hay, todas esas producciones pequeñas que tenemos en nuestra comunidad.
Estamos conformando una organización comunitaria de ahorro y crédito que nos permite otorgar créditos entre nosotros mismos y claro, con los recursos que nos ha otorgado la FAO y recursos propios. Esta experiencia es maravillosa porque hemos desarrollado más nuestras artesanías, nuestros rebaños, hemos adquirido nuevas experiencias. Gracias a este proyecto podemos decir que vamos a avanzar sin perder nuestra esencia como pueblo guayú.
El primer encuentro de alto nivel, Políticas Públicas para la Soberanía Alimentaria y Seguridad Alimentaria y Nutricional, se celebró en La Habana los días 23 y 24 de septiembre. Fue un espacio estratégico de diálogo político, intercambio de experiencias y construcción de sinergias entre los gobiernos de Cuba y Brasil en el ámbito de la cooperación sur-sur.
Allí estamos defendiendo cooperación, colaboración, solidaridad. Brasil es una de las economías más importantes del mundo y Cuba es una pequeña isla. Países con esas características tienen otra cantidad de lazos que nos unen, que pueden atenuar la diferencia en población, la diferencia en tamaño, para centrarnos en lo que es verdaderamente humano, que es defender la salud, la alimentación y el bienestar de nuestro pueblo.
El encuentro reunió a ministros y autoridades de gobierno vinculados a los sectores de la salud, la agricultura, el comercio y la seguridad social de ambos países, un reflejo del compromiso político al más alto nivel con esta agenda común.
Nós queremos ampliar para maior eficiência nessa cooperação. Cooperação Brasil-Cuba, voltada para a produção de alimentos, voltado para a geração de atividades de emprego, garantir as condições, não é, de cada vez mais dignidade para nossos povos.
Lo que estamos tratando acá es de organizar juntamente con el gobierno cubano, digamos, el conocimiento del conjunto de políticas públicas brasileñas y que en última análisis tiene que ver con dar mejores condiciones de vida a las capas más vulnerables de la población.
Y a partir de esas conexiones, reducir las brechas que tenemos hoy en nuestro país, poder encontrar oportunidades y trabajar de manera conjunta y poder reducir los niveles de vulnerabilidad que hoy en nuestro país crecen por diferentes factores.
A FAO, sempre como uma agência especializada de Nações Unidas em temas de alimento e agricultura, por estar aportando, registrando e ser novamente a parte terceira que estabiliza uma relação de oferta, demanda e uma parte técnica que possa operar numa plataforma bastante agressiva, mais rápida e, sobretudo, um mecanismo vertical de solidariedade e cooperação.
El primer encuentro de alto nivel definió una hoja de ruta con 14 ejes de colaboración como la agricultura familiar, la lucha contra el cambio climático y la alimentación escolar.
Tenemos un reto que es la soberanía alimentaria. Nosotros vamos a demostrar para Cuba las mejores políticas que Brasil tiene y también aprender con Cuba las mejores políticas para eso.
Tenemos la certeza de que la soberanía alimentaria de nuestros países exige la participación conjunta de todas las fuerzas, recursos y estructuras organizativas vinculadas a esta misión estratégica y decisiva para el bienestar de los pueblos.
Una vida mejor para las personas, sin dejar a nadie atrás. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas, que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO. 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. América Latina y el Caribe es la región más desigual, con niveles persistentes de pobreza rural que afectan desproporcionadamente a las mujeres y a los pueblos indígenas. La exposición a múltiples riesgos que aumentan rápidamente está haciendo que los sistemas agroalimentarios sean vulnerables a diferentes crisis y choques, afectando los medios de vida rurales, especialmente para la agricultura familiar. En América Latina y el Caribe, el 25% de la población se identifica como indígena o afrodescendiente, mientras que las mujeres constituyen el 36% de los trabajadores del sistema agroalimentario en el mundo. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por una mejor vida, priorizando una transformación rural inclusiva a través de acciones dirigidas a acelerar la inversión y la cooperación internacional. Erradicar la pobreza rural y reducir las desigualdades es fundamental para impulsar un desarrollo económico que ofrezca oportunidades para todos. Trabajemos juntos para reducir las desigualdades para un futuro más sostenible y resiliente.
Hace 8 décadas nació una visión multilateral que transformó el compromiso global con la seguridad alimentaria. En 1945 se fundó la Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Alimentación y la Agricultura, FAO, con el mandato de erradicar el hambre, mejorar la nutrición y promover sistemas agroalimentarios sostenibles e inclusivos. Desde entonces, la FAO ha sido un aliado técnico y estratégico para los Estados miembros, acompañando la formulación de políticas, planes y proyectos, fortaleciendo capacidades institucionales y promoviendo la cooperación internacional en favor del desarrollo agrícola y la resiliencia climática. En Venezuela, la FAO ha mantenido presencia continua durante 33 años, articulando esfuerzos con el gobierno nacional y actores locales, para avanzar en áreas clave como la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional, biodiversidad, adaptación al cambio climático, medios de vida sostenibles igualdad de género, atención a la emergencia climática y resiliencia comunitaria. Actualmente, desde las distintas latitudes del país, como en los Andes venezolanos, productores y productoras trabajan para proteger los bosques nublados a través de la agricultura sostenible de café y cacao, buscando aumentar la productividad y fertilidad de la tierra y prevenir la deforestación para salvaguardar estos ecosistemas. En el sur de Venezuela, el compromiso con la naturaleza es un legado ancestral. En la Gran Sabana, el pueblo indígena Pemón construye sus medios de vida sostenibles a partir de una profunda armonía con su entorno. Su cosmovisión, que ve a cada elemento de la naturaleza como parte de su ser, asegura la conservación de la biodiversidad en la cuenca del río Caroní. De igual forma, en Amazonas, el territorio con mayor diversidad cultural indígena del país, los pueblos Jibi, Curripaco, Huarequena, Maniba, Jotugua Piroa, Baré y Yeral demuestran que proteger el bioma forestal es un compromiso ético fundamental, con una visión y gestión integrada del paisaje, guían la conservación de estos ecosistemas vitales para la vida. Donde la SUT del Caribe acaricia las costas venezolanas, un proyecto pionero emerge como guardián de tesoros sumergidos para preservar la vida marina, que sustenta generaciones de comunidades costeras. Esta iniciativa integra conocimientos basados en la ciencia ciudadana en 5 áreas protegidas marino-costeras del país, para protegerlas de especies exóticas invasivas. La resiliencia es una de las misiones más importantes de la FAO. Cuando Venezuela ha enfrentado fenómenos climáticos y se ha puesto en riesgo los sistemas agroalimentarios y la vida de las personas, el programa de resiliencia ha actuado de la mano con las autoridades y las comunidades para brindar apoyo inmediato, mitigando el impacto de sequías e inundaciones. Pero la resiliencia no es solo responder a la crisis, es también construir un futuro. Por ello, la FAO ha contribuido con el fortalecimiento de los medios de vida locales. Además, promueve la alimentación escolar sostenible a través de la rehabilitación productiva de las escuelas técnicas agropecuarias, contribuyendo con la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional de las familias y sus comunidades. En Venezuela mantenemos la misión de transformar los sistemas agroalimentarios. Trabajamos por un país donde la producción sostenible respete el medio ambiente y garantice a toda la población una mejor nutrición para una vida mejor. 80 años de historia, 365 días de acción.
En Ciudad de Panamá se celebró el Foro Regional Sistemas Agroalimentarios Sostenibles e Inclusivos para el Empoderamiento de las Mujeres Rurales, un encuentro que reunió a gobiernos, sociedad civil, sector privado, banca de desarrollo, academia, organismos internacionales y de manera central a mujeres rurales, indígenas, afrodescendientes y jóvenes de toda América Latina y el Caribe. Durante 3 días, el foro se consolidó como un espacio multiactor de diálogo político, intercambio de experiencias y construcción de propuestas para avanzar en la igualdad de género y transformar los sistemas agroalimentarios de la región. El principal resultado fue la adopción de una hoja de ruta regional hacia 2030, con prioridades estratégicas para el empoderamiento económico, social y político de las mujeres rurales. El encuentro consolidó un compromiso esencial de todos los sectores para fortalecer el liderazgo de las mujeres rurales, con miras a hitos internacionales como el Año Internacional de la Agricultura en 2026, la 39 Conferencia Regional de la FAO, la COP30 y el Decenio Interamericano por los Derechos de las Mujeres Rurales.
¡Mujeres rurales, mujeres con derechos!
El fuego es parte de la dinámica de muchos ecosistemas y es esencial para la evolución y composición de los paisajes. La ecología del fuego se trata de la rama de la ecología que estudia el fuego como elemento de los ecosistemas y sus interrelaciones. Esta ciencia nos ayuda a entender su rol en el bosque. Para comprender el comportamiento del fuego, necesitamos observar las variables del entorno, las características de los combustibles, la topografía del sitio y las condiciones meteorológicas. Predecir cómo puede comportarse un incendio nos ayuda a planificar y prevenir. Estos elementos determinan cómo se inicia y cómo se condiciona la propagación de un incendio forestal. Un régimen de fuego ecológicamente adecuado mantiene el equilibrio del ecosistema. Su frecuencia, intensidad y estacionalidad ayudan a mantener la estructura, la composición y el funcionamiento esperado del bosque. Cuando este régimen se altera por la intervención humana, ese equilibrio se rompe y se compromete la funcionalidad o permanencia del bosque. Cuando el fuego se propaga sin planificación ni control, hablamos de incendios forestales. Estas perturbaciones pueden producir daños severos en los ecosistemas y amenazar vidas humanas. Hoy, los incendios en zonas de interfase, donde los asentamientos y actividad humana se encuentran en contacto con el bosque, provocan cada vez más catástrofes y pérdida de cobertura del bosque. El uso negligente del fuego, la expansión urbana y los diversos usos del bosque sin planificación aumentan los riesgos. Por eso es vital priorizar la prevención y la mitigación con estrategias que integren lo ecológico, lo social y lo técnico, que estén enfocadas en un cambio de conducta de la población sobre el uso del fuego y del bosque. Comprender las prácticas culturales del uso del fuego desde diversas perspectivas es una de las claves para planificar un paisaje en un contexto de crisis climática. El manejo integral del fuego es un modelo que incorpora el uso cultural del fuego, su rol en la ecología de los ecosistemas y las acciones de manejo con el objetivo de reducir el riesgo de incendios, proteger vidas, bienes y ambientes naturales. Al mismo tiempo, promueve el uso planificado y seguro del fuego como una herramienta de gestión territorial. No vamos a evitar todos los incendios forestales, pero sí podemos fortalecer las redes de gobernanza y la capacidad de autoprotección para construir paisajes y comunidades resilientes. Prevenir incendios forestales no es una acción aislada, es un proceso técnico, normativo y social que requiere planificación, conocimiento del territorio y participación de las comunidades. Este es el primer paso para consolidar una gestión integral de riesgo de incendios forestales y proteger nuestros ecosistemas, nuestras comunidades y nuestro futuro.
Necesitamos una mejor nutrición para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO. 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. La región enfrenta desafíos significativos para erradicar el hambre y la malnutrición. Aunque el número de personas que sufren hambre disminuyó ligeramente en 2023, 41 millones de personas en la región aún la sufren. América Latina y el Caribe registran el costo más alto de una dieta saludable en comparación con los promedios mundiales. El estimado de $4,56 por persona por día significa que 1 de cada 4 personas no puede permitirse una dieta saludable. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por una mejor nutrición, priorizando poner fin al hambre y lograr la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición sin dejar a nadie atrás. La transición hacia dietas saludables y una mejor seguridad alimentaria para los más vulnerables es una prioridad en la región. Trabajemos juntos por la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición para un futuro más brillante.
Para que todos puedan comer. Alimentos que más los nutran y verlos felices al crecer. Tenemos que hacer algo en el mundo para que todos puedan comer los alimentos que más los nutran y verlos felices al crecer.
¡Hey! Este futuro se está escapando, en nuestras manos está la solución. Pues luchemos por los que menos tienen contra el hambre y la malnutrición. ¡Hey! ¡Hey! Por eso baila, baila, baila conmigo y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. En tus manos tienes, mi buen amigo, una mejor vida y mejor nutrición. Por eso baila, baila sonriente y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Con mejor producción y mejor medio ambiente lograremos una buena nutrición. entregarlo más. La humanidad nos pide de hecho que logremos esta meta superar. Por eso baila, baila, baila conmigo y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. En tus manos tienes, mi buen amigo, una mejor vida y mejor nutrición. Por eso baila, baila sonriente y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Con mejor producción y mejor medio ambiente lograremos una buena nutrición. Pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Estamos comprometidos a acabar con toda la malnutrición. Por eso baila, baila, baila conmigo y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. En tus manos tienes, mi buen amigo, una mejor vida y mejor nutrición. Por eso baila, baila sonriente y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Con mejor producción y mejor medio ambiente lograremos una buena nutrición. Pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Pum, 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 pum.
Del 10 al 13 de octubre se realizó en Roma, en el Parque Porta di Capena, la primera exhibición global de la FAO de las semillas a los alimentos.
La Oficina de América Latina y el Caribe de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Alimentación y la Agricultura encabezó el pabellón regional bajo el lema Agrobiodiversidad para la vida y los medios de subsistencia. El espacio reunió una amplia muestra de sabores, productos y saberes tradicionales que reflejaron la riqueza agrícola y cultural de la región.
La agrobiodiversidad en la región es una fuente importante no solamente de preservación de la naturaleza, pero también de medios de vida. Hay muchos agricultores, familiares, poblaciones indígenas, afrodescendientes que preservan bien la naturaleza, estos recursos y al mismo tiempo logran sostener sus medios de vida.
La muestra contó con la participación de Bolivia, Brasil, Chile, Colombia, México, Perú, Venezuela y del proyecto regional Más Algodón, quienes mostraron el potencial de sus productos y alimentos. Además, se visibilizaron iniciativas e historias de vida de los países de América Latina y el Caribe a través de una muestra audiovisual.
La FAO está ayudando a sus Estados miembros a lograr sistemas agroalimentarios y sistemas alimentarios acuáticos más sostenibles y resilientes. Esta exposición global nos ayuda a mostrar el trabajo que está realizando la FAO en los diferentes países en las diferentes regiones.
La quinoa, el amaranto, la miel, el café y el chocolate fueron parte de la exhibición, que contó con más de 50 alimentos. Varios de los productos destacados en la muestra forman parte de la iniciativa Un País, un producto prioritario, impulsado por la FAO y que promueve el desarrollo de alimentos agrícolas especiales con alto valor local y potencial global.
Hemos aprovechado esta oportunidad también para presentar estos productos de relevancia agrícola especial, que son esos que forman parte de la iniciativa Un País, un producto prioritario. De relevancia también económica para los pequeños productores y, por qué no, de relevancia nutricional para todo aquel que lo consume.
La exposición forma parte de las celebraciones por el 80 aniversario de la FAO para seguir avanzando hacia una mejor producción, una mejor nutrición, un mejor medio ambiente y una vida mejor, sin dejar a nadie atrás.
Estamos aquí en Plaza Lavalle para celebrar los 80 años de la organización y también el Día Mundial de la Alimentación. Junto con el Mercado Sabe la Tierra y también acompañando al gobierno de la Ciudad de Buenos Aires, tenemos distintos talleres, tenemos charlas acerca de qué son los alimentos, de dónde provienen, qué es eso del campo a la mesa.
Hoy acá en la Feria de Tribunales podés encontrar productores con panificados, tenemos una verdulería, están en todo el corredor frutícola agroecológico de la zona de La Plata, y la propuesta del Mercado Sabe la Tierra es lograr que el consumidor pueda encontrar todo lo necesario para abastecerse y los alimentos de alguna manera cobran historia, porque quienes los venden son quienes los producen.
Nosotros en Argentina trabajamos en todo el país en diferentes líneas de trabajo. La relación de las comunidades con el bosque nativo, el enfoque ecosistémico de la pesca, los mercados de abastecimiento frutícolas, cómo reducir la pérdida y desperdicios de alimentos.
Para nosotros es importante que la FAO nos convoque a este tipo de iniciativas, porque en ese intercambio nosotros también podemos ver cuáles son las políticas internacionales, y eso también a nosotros nos da la pauta de poder pensar, desarrollar y crear políticas alimentarias y eso va generando una mejor ayuda para los vecinos de la ciudad.
Tenemos distintos proyectos con distintas líneas de trabajo y acompañamos a los gobiernos nacionales, provinciales, a mejorar sus políticas públicas, a mejorar las técnicas hacia los productores para una alimentación mejor, para una producción mejor, para un futuro mejor para todos.
Necesitamos una mejor producción para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Nuestra región aporta el 14% de la producción mundial de alimentos. Sin embargo, el 33% de las tierras cultivables están moderada y altamente degradadas, y la pérdida de más del 40% de la producción se relaciona con plagas y enfermedades. La FAO trabaja por una mejor producción en la región, priorizando una producción eficiente, inclusiva y sostenible, donde se necesita abordar integralmente las dimensiones ambiental, económica y social de la producción agropecuaria, forestal, de la pesca y de la acuicultura. Trabajemos juntos hacia una producción sostenible, sin dejar a nadie atrás.
La plataforma permite que los gobiernos, agencias, expertos y organizaciones accedan a información precisa sobre la seguridad alimentaria, la producción agrícola, la vulnerabilidad climática y muchos otros indicadores claves.
En la FAO, la salud y el bienestar de nuestros colegas son una prioridad. Por eso hemos trabajado para acercar los servicios médicos a todas y todos.
Hoy queremos contarle algunos de los logros alcanzados y sobre todo cómo estos servicios están disponibles para cada colega de la región.
En lo que va del 2025 hemos brindado en promedio 1.500 atenciones médicas y de enfermería, además de charlas y talleres con sobre 500 asistentes.
Sumado a esto, hemos realizado campañas de vacunación, charlas médicas y talleres de primer auxilio en 6 países de la región y próximamente en 3 países más.
Y hoy contamos con cobertura en Chile, Panamá, Barbados, Colombia, Perú, El Salvador, México, Brasil y Honduras, además de telemedicina para toda la región.
Nuestro programa de salud y bienestar pone a disposición diferentes apoyos médicos pensados para la vida laboral y personal de los colegas, desde consejería clínica y revisión de exámenes hasta medicina del viajero, certificados de aptitud para el trabajo y autorización de jubilación.
Además, seguimos impulsando espacios de aprendizaje y prevención, acompañamos en campañas de vacunación y estamos disponibles para responder consultas prácticas como el uso de su seguro médico.
Lo importante es que no necesitan estar en Chile para acceder a estos servicios. Contamos con telemedicina para toda la región y un sistema de agendamiento, tanto presencial como virtual, que facilita la atención en cualquier país.
En la FAO, cuidarnos es nuestra responsabilidad compartida.
Y por eso estamos aquí, para acompañarles y apoyar su salud donde quiera que estén.
Chaniagua, Quechumaleya. Pertenezco a la etnia Mayo, estamos ubicados al sur del estado de Sonora. Yo he tenido muy bonita experiencia con la plataforma de la FAO, haciendo cursos. Estoy estudiando la carrera de Ingeniería en Procesos Agroalimentarios y me han servido mucho para mis tareas, para mis proyectos escolares, igual para mi proyecto de vida.
El curso de Comercio y Agricultura de la FAO ha sido clave en mi vida profesional. Me dio herramientas prácticas para entender cómo las políticas comerciales impactan directamente en los mercados de los pequeños y medianos agricultores. Un ejemplo de esto, el módulo de comercio, me permitió asesorar a varios grupos de pequeños agricultores para exportar sus productos cumpliendo las normas.
He tomado cursos implementados por la FAO para mi capacitación, en los cuales me han ayudado todos mis conocimientos para seguir dando asistencia técnica.
Uno de los primeros cursos en los cuales participé trató sobre agroecología y fue, creo que, uno de los primeros cursos que estoy poniendo en práctica al máximo, como se dice, porque hace poco más de un año que tenemos una nueva coordinación denominada Unidad de Gestión de la Producción Orgánica y Agroecológica.
Los conocimientos adquiridos los he empleado para asesorar en proyectos de tesis, en mis proyectos de investigación sobre materiales nativos de la región como vainilla, cacao, así también en espacios como foros y mesas agroclimáticas.
Tengo mi primer logro de mano de Campus FAO, obteniendo el cargo de docente y puedo aplicarlo además durante la dirección de mis clases.
La certificación es gratuita y me ha abierto muchísimas puertas laborales.
Gracias a estos cursos también he podido asesorar a productores rurales en prácticas más sostenibles, fomentar la transición agroecológica y mejorar la articulación de cadenas de valor con un enfoque inclusivo.
Estos cursos son prácticos, accesibles y están llenos de herramientas para generar un impacto real y cotidiano. No solo es teoría, es conocimiento que puedes aplicarlo inmediatamente.
Nos permiten ser cada vez más competitivos.
A todos mis colegas, estudiantes y productores del campo, los invito a consultar la oferta permanente de cursos y talleres en línea que ofrece la FAO.
Si estás interesado en tomar un curso de la FAO, te digo que lo hagas sin dudar.
Trabajemos para lograr un mejor medio ambiente para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Los alimentos provienen del suelo y del agua. Sin embargo, la región es particularmente vulnerable al cambio climático y a las malas prácticas a nivel productivo que han generado degradación ambiental. Entre 2008 y 2018, las pérdidas en la producción agrícola relacionadas con desastres climáticos en América Latina y el Caribe se estimaron en $29.000 millones. En 2022, los desastres relacionados con el clima afectaron a 17 países. Si no actuamos hoy en la adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático, para el 2030, más de 3 millones de personas podrían alcanzar la pobreza extrema, en un escenario donde la escasez de agua se agravará. Por eso, en la región, la FAO trabaja por un mejor medio ambiente, priorizando la gestión sostenible de los recursos de la tierra, los suelos, el agua y la adaptación al cambio climático. En esa labor, también es clave el resguardo de la biodiversidad para lograr un equilibrio ecológico en los ecosistemas, garantizar la diversidad de alimentos y resguardar la cultura de las poblaciones con entornos ambientalmente sanos. A nivel urbano, las ciudades verdes y los centros de distribución de alimentos con reducción de huella ambiental, incluyendo el uso eficiente de energía y agua, también son clave. A través de esta prioridad regional, se busca proteger, restaurar y promover el uso sostenible de los ecosistemas terrestres, acuáticos y marinos y luchar contra el cambio climático. Trabajemos juntos hacia sistemas alimentarios resilientes para un futuro más sostenible.
Tenemos que hacer algo en el mundo para que todos puedan comer los alimentos que más los nutran y verlos felices al crecer.
¡Hey! Este futuro se está escapando, en nuestras manos está la solución. Pues luchemos por los que menos tienen contra el hambre y la malnutrición. ¡Hey! ¡Hey! Por eso baila, baila, baila conmigo y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. En tus manos tienes, mi buen amigo, una mejor vida y mejor nutrición. Por eso baila, baila sonriente y siente el pum, pum, pum en tu corazón. Con mejor producción y mejor medio ambiente lograremos una buena nutrición.
En esta comunidad específicamente, no todas las mujeres tienen acceso a la educación, tanto media general o universitaria. Casi la mayoría de las mujeres llegan hasta sexto grado. Esto no nos abre las puertas para acceder a otros tipos de empleo. FAO nos ha permitido crecer a través de las diferentes capacitaciones, atenciones que hemos recibido y también fortalecer la parte de los medios de vida.
También las formaciones en cada una de las producciones que hay aquí, en cada uno de los rubros que hay. El de avícola, el de siembra, está el de pesca, que también se hizo la formación de hacer chorizos de pescado y sobre todo el de artesanía a la cual pertenezco.
Hemos recibido mucho la capacitación acá, recibimos el kit que es de siembra, de rebaño, recibimos el kit de artesanía, de electromecánico.
Que hemos sido beneficiados por la FAO y por la SER. Que el impacto ha sido grande a nivel de todos, mejorar la calidad de vida porque tienen con qué producir, hay un movimiento económico y a la gente está haciendo cada uno de sus oficios.
Represento a un oficio que es muy bonito, que es la cría de ovejos y caprinos. La mayoría son mujeres, somos ama de casa, somos esposas, somos trabajadoras, somos maestras, somos administradores. En lo que es marketing o la promoción del producto, a llevar eso, a conocer el producto.
Y hemos pensado también hacer nuestras páginas para que nos conozcan a nivel internacional, comercializar todas esas artesanías que hay, todas esas producciones pequeñas que tenemos en nuestra comunidad.
Estamos conformando una organización comunitaria de ahorro y crédito que nos permite otorgar créditos entre nosotros mismos y claro, con los recursos que nos ha otorgado la FAO y recursos propios. Esta experiencia es maravillosa porque hemos desarrollado más nuestras artesanías, nuestros rebaños, hemos adquirido nuevas experiencias. Gracias a este proyecto podemos decir que vamos a avanzar sin perder nuestra esencia como pueblo guayú.
El primer encuentro de alto nivel, Políticas Públicas para la Soberanía Alimentaria y Seguridad Alimentaria y Nutricional, se celebró en La Habana los días 23 y 24 de septiembre. Fue un espacio estratégico de diálogo político, intercambio de experiencias y construcción de sinergias entre los gobiernos de Cuba y Brasil en el ámbito de la cooperación sur-sur.
Aquí estamos defendiendo cooperación, colaboración, solidaridad. Brasil es una de las economías más importantes del mundo y Cuba es una pequeña isla. Países con esas características tienen otra cantidad de lazos que nos unen, que pueden atenuar la diferencia en población, la diferencia en tamaño, para centrarnos en lo que es verdaderamente humano.
An initiative presented by FAO Transforms. We want to connect knowledge, experience, and opportunities among several stakeholders. We meet to create a space of dialogue to promote actions that will transform the actions of Agrifood Systems. It's a pleasure to greet the authorities and colleagues that accompany and are through the social networks where this event is broadcasted in English and Spanish. In this session, we will know about 4 initiatives that show how it's possible to articulate efforts, escalate results, and optimize the use of available resources. Likewise, we want to highlight how the collaboration among multiple sectors and the strategic sector of data and instrument can have an important role in the creation of innovative financial mechanisms for the sustainable development of agri-food systems. To know about the current context, I would invite you to watch the following video.
Los sistemas agroalimentarios de América Latina y el Caribe son el corazón de nuestras economías, de los medios de vida de las comunidades rurales y de la seguridad alimentaria de millones de personas. Sin embargo, la región sigue enfrentando desafíos persistentes: el aumento del precio de los alimentos, eventos climáticos extremos, la degradación de ecosistemas, conflictos y brechas en el acceso al financiamiento y la innovación. Las tendencias globales muestran que cerrar la brecha entre la oferta y la demanda de financiamiento para el desarrollo no depende solo de contar con más recursos, sino de conectarlos mejor. Para lograrlo se necesitan datos precisos, alianzas entre lo público, lo privado, la banca multilateral, la cooperación, los fondos climáticos, la inversión de impacto y la filantropía, así como herramientas innovadoras que movilicen el financiamiento de forma coordinada y efectiva. A través de su cooperación técnica, la FAO impulsa la articulación de múltiples socios para crear herramientas y enfoques innovadores que contribuyan a transformar los sistemas agroalimentarios y liberar el potencial del financiamiento para este sector. El mundo necesita actuar. De acuerdo con la última Conferencia Internacional de Financiamiento para el Desarrollo 2025, se requieren $4 billones al año para alcanzar los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. En América Latina y el Caribe, la brecha de financiamiento para los sistemas agroalimentarios supera los $160.000 millones anuales. El reto es inmenso, pero también las oportunidades, porque cuando innovamos, cuando nos unimos, cuando decidimos transformar, todo es posible. Hoy es el momento de abrir nuevas puertas, de crear y compartir conocimientos, generar mecanismos innovadores y fortalecer la cooperación conjunta para impulsar el desarrollo del sector agroalimentario. El potencial de América Latina y el Caribe es enorme. Es hora de convertirlo en acción, de conectar financiamiento, innovación y alianzas que transformen vidas. FAO Transforma presenta Unlocking Finance for Agrifood Systems Transformation.
the productive sector and the rural sector. A key topic that we are addressing now is how to enable financing in a world and in a region where there are certainly limitations, but there are available resources, sometimes not that accessible, but that can be very useful for our countries, our communities, our productive stakeholders, small, medium, to begin this complex process to transform agri-food systems in a climatic context that is more challenging. Last week, we went the scenario of one of the hardest climatic impacts. Jamaica was affected very strongly by a hurricane, as many island states in the Caribbean, as other countries that are affected by droughts, by recurring floods. And this puts on the table a topic that is part of the context for the development, which is adaptation for climate change, risk management, which are the early warning systems, that is innovation, the development of technologies in productive processes that allow us to face this scenario that, according to the data, will become more severe. How can financing be a tool that allow us to prepare ourselves in that context? There are big changes in Latin America and the Caribbean. Certainly, we have improved in many cases productivity. There is important progress in production. We are advancing in the development of eco systems that are resilient. There are development plans. There are projects and programs. How can we make these projects to find financial resources that are accessible and that can be adapted to their realities and their countries? This is a big challenge that we are facing. What are the financing models that are broad and flexible that will allow to reach this goal to enable financing? And this is one of the tasks that FAO has. FAO has a great expertise in technical assistance, development of scientific information to accompany productive sectors, has a broad network of work with entities that develop technologies, that do research from the academia, from research centers, has a strong center, a strong link with the productive stakeholders that allow to strengthen the technical capacity and give back, and to accompany the implementation of the financing since its origin, conception, up to its implementation. There are important stakeholders in the financial entities universe that are part nowadays of this enablers for financing. Let me quote some of them. We have the Global Green Fund for Climate, the GEF, initiatives like the Global Gateway that wants to move $3 million because investment is bigger. The lack of action delays our agri-food systems and has a cost of $12 billion. And the action in the terms of investment in adaptation, in resilience, in this complex context can imply an investment between $1.2 and $1.4 million. What important allies do we have in the development of our countries? Which ones do we observe? Banks like CAF, IDB, the World Bank, the Development Bank of the Caribbean, the BCM, several funds as the ones that the United Nations has created, the GEF,
de bancos que sí tienen presencia in situ, organismos financieros. Pero del lado de nuestros propios países también tenemos actores financieros potentes.
But from our countries, we have important stakeholders, some with approvals of surprising credits, multilateral banks. Let me mention the national public development banks like Brazil. In every country, we have Mexico, Argentina, Central America, financing funds that have capacity to move resources. In lower floors, intermediary, we have the commercial bank. The private bank is important, mobilizes resources, and there is a increasing orientation that implies an awareness of resilience of agri-food systems that are aimed with this big phrase, environment, social environment and governance. So commercial bank is coming in this from the commercial bank and microfinances. See the diversity of stakeholders that are part of the financing universe and that are waiting technical assistance to strengthen the organizations of producers and accompaniment in the development of policies and subnational policies and the private stakeholders. And here, FAO, without doubt, has a great expertise and great capacity to mobilize intelligent resources that allow to add to the already existing resources and to add experiences and technologies that are added to the local level. These additions improve and accelerate transformation processes. Important in this vision to consider the need to mobilize investment. How can we articulate these stakeholders in the perspective to mobilize investments, to locate investment from the multilateral, to mobilize the resources through subnational, national, and private resources. Furthermore, in some cases, to participate and to accompany in direct investment, FAO, with its great technical assistance, its presence in all the countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, resources that can be transformative, resources and financial products that can also be adapted to the reality. This is a very interesting term, to make the policies more tropical. We need also to make the financing more tropical, to adapt them to the reality of our producers, to their ecosystems, to their productive practices, from entrepreneurs, peasants, indigenous practices. And this trend, intelligent trend of the financial mechanisms to adapt, to develop flexible products, innovative products, financial products that are moving in the great part of the institutions and also national and transnational. And FAO has an important role, it accompanies in this advance to transform the financial products, to design financial governances so we can have accessible and quick financial products. Speed is also important, especially in context of climate crisis, of climate impact, and to be prepared for those climatic effects. Nowadays, there are tools that are working and they are innovative in climate finances, debt for climate change, in the participation of climate changes that many countries are adopting that are arriving to local sectors, to producers in the field, and that we can mobilize with the capacity that FAOs has to build knowledge with the local stakeholders and also to show the knowledge that we have developed and to exchange with the local people. I have been talking with the colleagues from all Latin America and the Caribbean that have attended this meeting, and they told us the different experiences of different regions in the Caribbean, in the Andean, the Amazon forest, the coast, the dry corridors of different regions and ecosystems, and the experiences that they have in the countries. And these are really give insights, challenges that we have to face, and where great part of this universe, or revolving funds, climatic guarantees. These are tools that are moving in the financing, and financing creates processes that they can have the impact capacity. In this perspective, FAO is orientated the technician that were here, the workers, together with the producers, with different experiences, very close to them or trying to support them, we can strengthen the capacities of the productive systems and to build bridges and articulation networks with the financial sectors. This is a challenge of FAO Transforms. This is very important, the financing, and to enable financing sources so they can reach the producers. And this will be part of FAO's mission, and we all commit with conviction and with willingness to work, because this is part of our life mission in this important institution created and devoted to food security, to production, so we can all live together.
Agradecemos al señor Orellana,
We thank Mr. Orellana, Regional Representative for Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you for sharing your vision and panorama and the current situation for the transformation of agri-food systems. At the beginning, we mentioned, and we will know some concrete experiences of initiatives and projects that have been implemented with the technical assistance of FAO. And to deepen in this topic, I would like to invite as a moderator Renata Clark, who will accompany us, and to the representative of FAO in the region, Adoniram Sanchez, please, Luis Bedusky, Juan Cheas, Gillian Smith, and David Nevin that accompany us from the headquarters. Likewise, I would like to greet strategic partners that they will share their vision.
No hay problema. También quisiera dar la bienvenida, como lo mencionaba, socios estratégicos que también nos están acompañando.
I would like to give Pablo Huica from the Ministry of Housing of Chile, Mr. John Maris of Sinentin Asset Management, Mr. Ángel Morillo of the Central American Bank, and Maria Beringer for the SDGs. So now I will offer the floor to Renata so she can moderate the panel.
So from here, we'll just dive dive down into our 4 stories. We're all struggling constantly to deliver as best as possible for our countries. The idea is that we will share 4 cases and hopefully inspire each other about how do we work with new partners, work differently with old partners, all around unlocking finance that can drive real change. I will be the hard taskmaster. Timing is important. I'm relying on support from Matthias. So I would like to start by asking Luis Berduschi and Pablo Huica to give 4-minute introductions to your case.
Thank you, Renata. Buenos dias a todas, a todos. Eu vou tomar, em verdade, minuto.
Good morning. I'm just going to take only 1 minute speaking on behalf of the office from Chile to highlight 3 things. Something that is very important that positions FAO in the region and the countries, and the proposal is built hand in hand with the headquarters, the regional support, with the technical support, and a team that was made by Eve Crowley, which is a very well-made team that is not fearful of taking new risks, because each word of the title are new things: solutions-based in nature, the climate agencies, which is part of our framework, and partners which are not always the same. In this case, is the Ministry of Housing. So I will offer the floor to Paulina Terra, who is behind this proposal, and then Pablo will complement from the government's point of view. So Paulina, please go ahead. Good afternoon. Paulina Terra, I'm the coordinator of Green Cities, and I will tell you about the co-financing mechanisms where we have created the strategy, and we want to have a sustainable implementation from 2026. To let you know that this strategy started last year, we will soon have it approved in the next days, and soon we will implement it in 2026, and we'll have an implementation till 2050. So this strategy arises as an initiative, a joint initiative with the Ministry of Housing, Environment, and the technical support of FAO. And the objective is to promote more sustainable cities and resilient to climate change. And one of the most innovative aspects is the inclusion of the Ministry of Housing as a strategic partner in FAO Chile. This collaboration represents an important change because it adds the focus of housing within the thematic agenda of FAO in Chile. From its design, the strategy recognized to have an important implementation. It was necessary to design financial mechanisms that were innovative and complementary, that would allow to mobilize public and private and international resources, and to integrate environmental finances in the urban agenda. Thanks to all the alliances, the strategy of green cities is connected with the principle of Green Cities Initiative of FAO, which tries to promote green infrastructure in a multi-factorial way. With these objectives, there are 3 financing mechanisms that I will mention, whose objective is to leverage international resources, to establish synergies among national policies, and to include the active participation of the private sector. Regarding the first financing mechanism, it's combined with international funds, which tries to ensure the financing of green cities in the medium and long run. through the articulation and under the collaboration of 3 projects that are complementary. The financing of the Green Cities strategy, thanks to the GEF, the resources given by them. Also thanks to the resources of the GEF of the Green Cities, which is financed by the World Fund for the Environment under the program of Sustainable Cities, whose objective is to help these cities plan, and so the cities are neutral, carbon neutral, and also through the project to promote nature-based solutions that is financed. These 3 projects that have been mentioned before were conceived simultaneously, trying to leverage resources and generate synergies among these projects. This has allowed to scale solutions based in nature and the infrastructure based in urban and peri-urban areas through technical complementary. And thanks to this coordination, the GEF project of Green Cities has consolidated as the short-term agenda because GEF has a length of 5 years and the strategy is a long-term strategy. But thanks to the GEF funds, we will be able to have an implementation of the 5 years of the strategy in a more sustainable with a guaranteed result.
You have 30 seconds left.
Through the project of solutions based in nature. The second mechanism becomes synergies between public policies, thanks to the joint design between the National Strategy of Biodiversity and the National Policy of Urban Development, together with the Green Cities. And thanks to these 3 policies, we want to maximize the use of the existing resources and public investment. And there we finance financing strategies from the private sector through portfolios, mapping of financial instruments, environmental services where the private sector has strategies. Finally, regarding the expected results, what we're looking through these mechanisms is to leverage international and national resources to implement the strategy, consolidate public-private alliances, and to be based in solutions based in nature, to integrate environmental planning and urban planning, and to show.
Paulina? Can you just wind up?
Okay. Con esto termino. Bueno, bajo estos 3 mecanismos,
so under these 3 mechanisms, we can leverage resources for the transformation of our cities to urban cities more resilient and more intelligent.
Thank you. We'll come back quickly in the next round with some questions, Paulina. But for now, we will ask Pablo Huica from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to give his insights into this interesting and novel partnership.
Muchas gracias. Primero partir agradeciendo a todas y todos por la invitación a este evento. Me parece sumamente interesante.
Thank you very much, everyone, for this important event, and it's very important for us to be able to share our views on projects in these kinds of spaces. I, right now, would like to mention why this project is relevant for our institution. And I think the main relevance has to do with the fact that it's an innovation working with the Ministry of Urbanization. Urban Ministry, for us, is a novelty for FAO. For us, too, it is the same thing. Here in Chile, we have the Environmental Ministry, and others have developed a way of engaging with international organizations, but not this one yet. And so it's not a practice that has been completely absorbed And so for us, the fact that we have a green fund for climate and this technical assistance by FAO are novelties for our this implies also a methodological novelty in the way we engage and the way we cooperate in general. So this is also a novelty with our ministry here, and it has represented an interesting strategic relevance because it has enabled us to realize that we have a role to play in terms of sustainability, especially within cities, and this urban role and on sustainability has to do with the ministry, and it has been actually relegated within the ministry for other agencies like dwellings and so on. So this allows us to extend and understand what that we cannot produce any housing unless we look at the environment, and we cannot produce streets and parks unless we talk about sustainability. So this is a very interesting merging of viewpoints. And we have been having a very intense work together with the FAO technical assistance. It has been quite valuable. In fact, they work here at the ministry on a face-to-face basis, and the interaction is constant. And this has allowed us to build a strategy jointly. And this means that it's not just a transmission of a technical transfer of technology or knowledge. It's been a joint effort, a thing walking hand in hand and eye to eye, and it's an opportunity for the ministry for Chile. And concerning the replicability and scalability, I think it's essential to understand that we're not looking to have an instrument, a new instrument, because it's not new. What did we do? We already analyzed what we're already doing as a state and how we respect nature and so on, all of the green elements, but how we could actually, what we could do on top of, build on what we already are doing to get the best results. So this is not something that started from zero, but it adjusts to what we're doing and improves on that. And I think that's its basis for sustainability and for being respected. Actually, it's a drive forward with a new energy. And so that's what I wanted to say. Thank you,
Pablo, for that very interesting perspective and for your scientific precision in terms of the timing. Next, the second case I would like, and this is a case that's a little more close to my heart, and this is Juan Sheas and John Morris telling us about the fund that we have developed over the years. Over to you. I will be a strict timekeeper. Juan, you're on.
Yes. Thank you very much, Renata. It's a real big pleasure, to be here with you, with my colleagues in Santiago and with all those online to share this experience. The context of this project is relates very, very directly with the efforts that the FAO has been carrying out in the Caribbean in the development of agricultural value chains. For more than 4 years, we've been supporting countries in helping develop high market potential value chains. And in doing so, we have carried out detailed work in terms of market analysis, supply chain analysis, and what are the opportunities and the strategies to upgrade the performance of those chains on a range of commodities, more than 20 commodities in, let's say, in at least 12 or 13 countries. Having done so, we realized that the key elements of those upgrading strategies in order to be implemented and in order to enhance the performance of those chains needed financing. And financing has not been available in the region. This is critical if we are to actually be able to implement the recommendations that have emerged from those exercises. That's when we realized that we needed to reach out and try to identify complementary expertise to mobilize finance, and specifically to mobilize capital with an emphasis on private capital. And that's when, thanks to a small technical cooperation program, a project with very small resources, we managed to engage the collaboration of a private sector company in the US specializing in financial services, 17 Asset Management. We engaged with them and we basically asked them to help us identify what the specific needs of our stakeholders were, what the possibilities of investors in the broader realm of investment finance, what were the possibilities, and what was the degree of tolerance of the investments that would be willing to invest in a region, and define very specific capital vehicles that would lend themselves successfully to the reality of the Caribbean region. In the last 24 months, we have been able to working closely together with 17 Asset Management and with stakeholders in the region to surpass the original target of identifying 20 business opportunities. We actually identify 130 agribusiness opportunities that have undergone a detailed process of due diligence process. They are at different stage, but we have those 130 and a significant portion of those initiatives have high potential to be subject to financing. We also created a database of stakeholders across the region through multiple channels, more than 1,000 stakeholders from all sectors, from private, from government, from small-scale agribusiness. And we consulted more than 700 key stakeholders and engaged with them in important events across the region, including in the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, in the Bahamas, in St. Vincent last year, and more recently in St. Kitts and Nevis, where there was a launch of this fund. The result of that effort, which my colleague John Morris will be able to tell you what is it exactly, what this fund for supporting agribusiness transformation in the Caribbean is the impact, or the big result is that in addition to having all that experience, that intelligence, that evidence that we have now built, the region now possesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, are you online?
Yes, I believe I am. I hope you can hear me.
Okay. Yes, and please, 4 to 5 minutes, you're on.
We'll try to fit the last 3 years of work into 4 to 5 minutes. And first, the work would not have been possible without the vision of Dr. Renata Clark and without the incredible management oversight of Juan Cheese. The last 2 years of effort with FAO has been tremendous in kind of unlocking that riddle of how do you get private capital into the Caribbean food systems. And we are pleased to be launching now, as a result of that effort, a $100 million equity fund that will invest in companies throughout CARICOM and will look for high value companies that will be growth engines that could take farmers and health to a new level in the region. In the first quarter of next year, we'll be launching a venture equity fund that will start with earlier stage. We recognized when we started that so much of what has been done in the past has been unbelievable in the creation of initiatives and projects. But if private capital is to participate, those initiatives and those projects need to be transferred to a product that private investors understand how to invest in a product. And also, the majority of capital that has been provided has been mostly by the banks and development organizations in the form of debt in the region. And so there's been a lack of equity, meaning coming in as partnership money, as a minority, to allow those companies to get more debt and to grow. And that also means the analysis of those companies needs to be how those operators, those business owners, can grow their business, not just pay their debt, but to grow their business and to create more and more of an opportunity. When we started this, when we started interviewing people, the feedback was, there's no opportunity in the Caribbean. Why would you be trying to do this? This is not investable. Now that we have put this fund together, the response we're getting from investors are, why has this not happened before? This is fantastic. This is a great opportunity. So I feel we have broken maybe a emotional barrier. In addition, we believe we will attract a lot of investors from the US, from Europe, and the Middle East. And we've gone through the structuring of the fund. So it works for Caribbean investors, and it works for US investors and international investors. And this fund is targeting a return that would be equal to an agricultural fund in the US or in Europe, a 15% return. Over a 7 to 8 to 9 year period. That means this is long-term money, allowing to maybe aggregate some lands, bring maybe farmer associations or co-ops into shareholders or into partners in these companies, opposed to being a co-op only. Many different opportunities we are seeing in regionalizing these businesses. So there is so much more to talk about this fund and the next fund, but the result is that this is the first fund of its type ever. There has never been a Caribbean food systems fund targeting equity, and we are very glad to break this unlock this situation for the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And you didn't even use all 5 minutes. The next presentation is going dry corridor and the work that you've been doing there. 5 minutes.
Gracias, Renata. El proyecto leva título Corredor Seco Resiliente. É projeto de
So the title here is about a dry corridor. The program was approved by FAO along with the environment. This project has been worked on during 6 years. It's very complex because it involves 6 countries, and it actually deals with the dry corridor. This means an integration mechanism for the Central America with the participation of ministers of agriculture, and they meet every 6 months to discuss common topics, common issues. And those of us who work in Central America, we have a migration that is strong, that it starts in Oaxaca, Mexico, it goes through Guatemala, goes into El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama. So it even goes to the high regions of Dominican Republic. This is a project considered by all of the by the structures of the climate, very important and used structure. I have to mention that the entity, there is an entity, a banking entity that is involved. This is within the dry corridor where the agriculture in Central America is on the Pacific coast. And so to find business within the dry corridor is not easy. And so that's why the name of this is Program for the Adaptation Based on Ecosystems to Increase the Resilience to Climate Change in the Dry Corridor. So if it weren't for this, we would have financing in a different way. So for FAO to generate the experiences with 18 projects and explain the structure that we have customized for overseeing these territories. And this is a project that is looking into the future of this area. In 4 to 5 years, the whole profile of financing can change thanks to this project. Here, anybody who works in a financial system, you know that there is the base-basal agreement and the financial agreement, and you know that here we have to the Central American Bank is the accredited organization that is linked to this project, and they know about sovereign debts, and they can come into the network of private banks in that area. And so the distribution of those financing lines that come from the banks there, but the Central American Bank also has some risk because it's taking its own resources and it's mixing with other financial mechanisms with all the safeguards concerning climate and all of that, and linking up all sectors, universities, youth, and everything. It's a luxury that FAO is there with the Central American Bank in this context, in these kinds of projects. Another luxury is to be working with a forum of the environment and the ministries who meet every 6 months, and they are in Panama embracing the project and making sure that you need to intertwine with public policy for the project to have this phase, and these ministers are also have to scale this to public policy, and also they are responsible to make these operations go wider and with greater goals and more defined, and to transform the dry corridor in the farming area.
Thank you, Adoniram. Angel Murillo.
Muy buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por la invitación.
Angel, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to be part of this important forum. This program is very important for BCE, i.e. because within the framework of the needs and the public policy of the 7 countries of Central America, trying to create opportunities in a territory, in this case, the dry corridor, which is in an accelerated process of degradation of the natural resources, and where we have communities that are in fact affected all the time because of climate changes. And so in the mechanism which our colleague is mentioning is very relevant, because it's a program that is integrative, and it's based on a financial innovation that manages to put together different instruments to be able to approach this, to tackle the issue in that territory. And on the other hand, the program as such started by a very deep logical rationale in terms of how to approach, how to tackle the issues with regard to this dry corridor and its recurring problems. And also, on the other hand, within the program, we have had a financial leverage that has been important concerning the climate as well with the bank, the BCIE. And we also need to realize also that it has been co-financed by other important financing institutions. And this process needs to highlight the fact that this starts from the experience and the knowledge that the bank has and the connection that we maintain in a wide network of financial institutions on a regional basis, and that are basically working as a bridge over which we can channel the resources faced with all these disbursements processes and the strengthening of all the productive systems in those territories. So this network of financial intermediaries are currently over 75, and so they become such a bridge that the vice president of FAO was explaining about, and that's where we have inserted ourselves. On the other hand, in this relation that has been long held with the FAO, we see the FAO as a key catalyzer of a technical agenda, a wide agenda with also long-time presence. And for us, it is a strategic ally, like the case of the SCAD, which is the Committee for Development, which is another executor, very key executor for this program, in terms of whether or not this initiative is scalable from our point of view, and within the framework of the formulation of this project, we analyze processes, methodologies for validation of technology, and we make available experiences that a bank has in structuring financial mechanisms and for the productive sector. And in that sense, I want to share with you that we didn't start from scratch, but rather from a huge process of technical validation, of technical instruments and financial instruments, which definitely are part of this initiative and are key factors for the success of this program that integrates the technical agenda that has been validated and the financial agenda that has also been validated by the Central American Bank. And so this is my summary, and so thank you very much.
Thank you, Adoniram and Angel Murillo. The fourth case that we're going to be looking at is an example of a joint UN SDG funded project. So the FAO 5 minutes is going to be shared between Gillian and David Nevin. Gillian, please.
Thank you. And I am really excited to share this little bit of a project that we're doing in Suriname with you. This is a project that is part of the Agriculture Systems Transformation Accelerator, which is an FAO UNIDO initiative. And the reason I mention that is because this is as Renata mentioned, the seed funding for this comes from the SDG Joint Fund. So it includes at least 5 UN agencies. Beyond the technical design of this project, we wanted to highlight the fact that there is a real spirit of openness, and this is what is driving innovation in this process. At its core, this is a project that we are using that the results sustain themselves after the end of the project. And it's about moving from the plans and the ambitions, the dialogue, to action that is really important to the small farmers. So I'm going to hand you over now to David Nevin so he can tell you a little bit more about the specifics.
Thanks, Gillian. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So the introduction is made. It falls under this global ASTA program. Let me first sketch the situation in Suriname in terms of the pineapple value chain. There's a value chain that holds great potential in terms of having farmers and public sector actors, stakeholders that are very keen to develop this value chain. Situation where there's lots of land available that is in a healthy state. It's suitable for organic production, and there's lots of land available with good growing conditions. And also where there's a good story, a good marketing story of indigenous farmers having produced pineapple in that region for centuries. Suriname is one of the birthplaces of the pineapple, and you have very unique varieties of pineapple in the country. And there's a good market for those high quality, organic, unique variety of pineapples. Now, to take advantage of the opportunity, 3 critical constraints needed to be addressed at the same time, like lack of access to finance, to knowledge, and to markets. All 3 together at the same time had to be addressed in order to have an effect. To address all 3 together, we established, to the stakeholders established, but with our support, the Horticultural Innovation Hub, which is a foundation that is implementing value chain activities and on the input procurement side as well on the pineapple marketing side. It was established by presidential decree, and I won't go into the specific details of the knowledge and marketing challenges which were addressed by linking traditional knowledge in Suriname to global best practice knowledge from Costa Rica, and through contract-based aggregation models. On the financing side, 2 models needed to be financed: the Horticultural Innovation Hub, let's say the hub from now on, and the improved farmer business model. The farmer business model shifted from farmers in the traditional practice just spending almost no cash on developing a hectare of land to $25,000 per hectare that needed to be developed. And it involved many new practices, often first-time introductions in Suriname, such as the use of bedders in land preparation, biofactories for input production, artificial flower induction, and the establishment and use of a digital platform. About 80% of the producers are indigenous producers who have a lot of land, but it's communal land, and they do not have title to it, so they cannot use it as collateral to access loans. So in this context, there was the financial solution that was introduced. The main part is a collateral facility that was established. At the time that the project started, this could not be done through FAO's modality. So this collateral facility was established by UNIDO as a partner in the joint program. Through the project, $500,000 was established in an account of the hub with a local bank called TBA. And the hub has a contract with that bank to manage this collateral facility. Farmers who meet certain qualification criteria then first sign a supply contract with the hub, a pineapple supply contract, which is a precondition to use the collateral facility, and then they apply for the loan. Once they have the loan, they are free to use that loan to buy the inputs that are needed for the specific inputs that they need to use according to the supply contract. But a lot of these inputs, organic inputs, are not readily available in the country, so they are being purchased in bulk, imported by the hub. The hub's business model is basically driven by generating income from the marketing of inputs and especially, of course, the sale of the pineapples. But that in turn requires for them to have access to working capital. Now, to address the working capital need for the hub, we used in a creative way FAO's matching grants mechanism to make about $60,000 available to the hub, so it can purchase the inputs, import the inputs for a first batch of farmers, and then when the farmers repay the hub for those inputs, the same amount of money is then in sort of a revolving fund used to buy the inputs for the next batch of farmers that joins the scheme. I want to briefly mention a couple of quick points on the financing mechanism that are worth mentioning. One is the social dimensions of this are very important given the indigenous communities, the need to involve involve youth and women. So UNFPA and ILO and their expertise played a critical role in those dimensions. The digital platform that was introduced will allow over time the farmers to link to carbon credit markets. The way that, and this relates a little bit to the earlier presentation, the way that the hub is set up in terms of its board structure, it includes farmer representatives, so that help decide on strategic decisions of how the hub operates. But also the standard operating procedures of the hub involve a profit-sharing scheme in which the farmers benefit from any surplus generated by the innovation hub. So everybody's interest is aligned, and it generates additional income that can be invested by farmers, and so they're capacitated and incentivized to grow the scheme faster.
Okay, David, I'm
Yes.
gonna have you have 2 seconds to wind up.
Well, 2 seconds, I cannot that much.
You'll have a second chance to give us a minute of wisdom. So I'll move on to Maria Berenguer, and I'll give you a chance to say something about those platforms in a bit. Maria?
Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. I was asked to share with you a little bit of actually the challenges and some of the lessons learned from the Joint SDG Fund side, not only by supporting the Suriname program, but also by supporting other joint programs that are focusing on innovative and especially blended finance kind of mechanisms. So I'll be brief. Some of those challenges that I'm gonna share here were already mentioned also by other colleagues that were presenting. First of the challenges, I cannot start in another manner, but saying that regulatory and policy barriers still are something that we need to overcome when we're talking about blended finance schemes. In developing countries, especially in LDCs or SIDS, the lack of robust regulatory frameworks and clear investment rules creates uncertainty for private sector investors and delay project implementation. The Joint SDG Fund, through this portfolio of programs that we support, including the Suriname ASTA program, has found that really the UN convening power, by bringing to the table the regulators, the investors, the governments, and others, can really help to accelerate any necessary policy reforms that are needed in those cases. So, for instance, one example that we have is that in the case of Zimbabwe, we're supporting the implementation of a renewable energy fund. In this case, what the UN did was to support this new mechanism to actually be granted by the government of Zimbabwe a prescribed asset status, which is then going to allow them to tap into pension funds and institutional investments directly to the mechanism. Another challenge that was mentioned by other colleagues, and so I'll not go deep into this one, is really the weak investment pipelines and limited market readiness. So the need for technical assistance to accompany all of these instruments is definitely key and is essential to build the capacity and reduce execution risk. The other way that the Joint SDG Fund is also supporting this limited market readiness in some of the countries is to promote the financial de-risking as well. As David was saying, in the case of Suriname, we are helping with the collateral that these smallholder farmers need to then untap other loans from the market. In other cases, the fund's catalytic grants are being served as the first loss in many of those instruments. So we're really the last ones to be repaid, while we support other less tolerant risk investors to join the conversation in the deal room. I also would like to briefly mention about the high transaction costs and operational complexity that also brings challenges to many of the programs that we support. So blended finance structures often involve multiple partners, legal agreements and compliancy checks that really increase the costs and slow down the deal making, which is not really compatible with private sector expectations. So the Joint SDG Fund learned throughout this journey that operational simplicity is really the key here. So programs that layer too many instruments or compliance requirements made it difficult for local actors to participate or replicate the model. So the fund is now moving towards simpler, more standardized investment instruments and processes, but understanding that, again, each solution needs to be context specific. So there's really no one-size-fits-all solution here. And last point from my end, for me to wrap up and not surpass the time that I have, is really about the sustainability and exit strategies. That's something that David and other colleagues mentioned about the need for all of these instruments to focus on already having, from the very beginning of the design, an idea on what is going to be really the long-term plan. We have to move from the pilots or first phases of capitalization to really less risky long-term dependency on development aid. So the fund now requires for any joint program that we enter to support, for these joint programs to really articulate this clear transition and access strategy from the very beginning, building on local capacity and incentives for sustainability beyond the UN involvement. So this is really another key factor that I wanted to highlight. And I will stop here to avoid that I surpass my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. And okay, that actually brings us to the end of the 4 cases. I will go back to each of the 4 cases and just give you a chance to answer one quick question. I'll start with David. Sorry for cutting you off, David, because what you were saying is actually incredibly interesting and directly related to a discussion we've had earlier today about new financing and revolving schemes and how they work. So can you, in less than 2 minutes, recap those key lessons learned from the ASTA experience?
Okay, thank you. I think I've learned my lesson. Like 2 minutes is very, very small to say 2 things. But I want to pick up from the point that Maria made, is that it's critical to see that exit point. Like to what point do we need to take it that the system can go on itself? Like we know in the case of Suriname, we need to have about 50 hectares of pineapple production, pineapples under production. So once we have that achieved, we know that the project will run on its own. Maybe with a bit of support can grow faster, otherwise we'll go slower, but has a chance to achieve this point. And so we also learned that this takes time, always more time than you think. It's about building trust. It's about gaining experience. It's delays of different parties that come into play. So you need to be flexible enough in terms of what you do, but also in the time that you can allocate to this to reach that point. If you stop a few months short from reaching that point, the whole thing may collapse. And so it's key to reach that point, to know where that point is, that you can achieve it. And if I have more time, I would take as a second point, I would highlight this sort of being very creative with partnerships. No single organization can solve everything. And if there are 5 critical constraints you need to address all 5. If one organization or 2 or 3 partners cannot do it, you need to bring in the partners that can address these issues.
Thank you, David. Maria, did you want to add 30 seconds to that before I move on to another of the cases?
Maybe I'll just add one additional lesson learned then that I was remembered while David was speaking. And it's really about the measurement and monitoring of the impact of all of these mechanisms as well. And sometimes with the UN supported programs, you have the tendency of creating those results frameworks that often prioritize the donor reporting over transaction level data in compliance with international reporting standards, which sometimes it's harder to then explain to other parts of the market, especially to the private sector. So I think one lesson learned also for us from this portfolio of projects is really trying to use both the SDG level narrative frameworks, but also operational dashboards with those like smart indicators where we can go deep into each one of the transactions to be able to then translate to the language to the multiple partners that we work with within each one of those blended finance instruments. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question, John, are you online? John Morris?
Yes, I am.
Okay, John, again, you have just a minute.
Okay.
I know it wasn't an easy journey, those 2 to 3 years in constructing with the funds and getting to where we are now. If you had one piece of advice to give to members of the development community, or governments in terms of how they can better play their role in accelerating this unlocking of financing? What would be that one piece of advice?
I would have more interaction between the ag ministers and agricultural community and the finance ministers and the finance community to create regulation that was incentivizing, not at a country level, but at a CARICOM level, money coming in to incentivizing private capital to come in, because it has been the key thing that has slowed us down, has been the regulatory tax and effort to make it relevant to Caribbean investors, as well as make it interesting to foreign private capital, and also to make it relevant to have good exits, the way Maria was talking about. Most of the exits, we believe, is very much aligned with CARICOM's interest, is to have more regionalization. But a lot of the tax and the benefits in certain areas don't promote regionalization of companies merging for an exit to create a Caribbean-based broader success. So you know, I would say our 5 areas of challenge has been regulation, investor readiness. Maria mentioned investment readiness of the investees, but I don't think the community is going around the world training investors how to invest in the region and why, other than real estate in the Caribbean. So I think investor readiness, equity behavior. You don't grow the capital markets if you don't get equity and ownership and people coming in to partner. And so that's a training that operators need to know the value of having partners and equity ownership, and the discussion about how to get money out of the investment over a 7 to 10 year period of time. So, but the single issue, Renata, was the collaboration of regulation and the finance and the ag sector. And I would say what we have done is repeatable, and it opens the door for many other funds to come in and do the same, or for us to add. And that 125 million we bring in should bring in another 300 million in debt and some technical assistance as well. So it's more like a 400 million impact, which I hope is repeated over and over in this region and around the world.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I'd like now to put a question to, I don't know if it's going to be Paulina or Pablo Huica, about that very interesting Green Cities collaboration. And you'd begun to mention private sector engagement, and I didn't give you the chance to elaborate. So I'm curious, you have 1 minute to say something about how you see private sector engagement in this context, and maybe a word about sustainability going forward. Pablo?
Bueno.
Okay, Paulina, go ahead, please.
Ok. Bueno, sí, respecto de
Regarding the involvement of the private sector, at this moment we are creating a financing strategy together with an involvement plan of the private sector for the long run. And this involvement would be more in a voluntary nature through incentive certifications, and also considering the project portfolio at regional portfolio at city level, where they can have environmental compensation in projects based in nature, green infrastructure in the cities. In this way, there is a collaboration from the incentives of the participation of the private sector, and not under regulation, because quite often the private sector is not adapted to regulations. this in very scientific terms. I don't know, Pablo, if you would like to add something.
Thank you, Paulina. My last question is in relation to the Dry Corridor Initiative. And I really liked what Angel Murillo said. You know, he termed FAO as, you know, being this catalyzer of the technical agenda. I really liked that. It promises for lots more productive collaboration in the future. And without a doubt, it's not easy to put together several countries and different institutions. So do you have any hints to us, Adoniram? How did you make it work?
Gracias por la pregunta, Renata. En verdad, yo creo que
Well, truly, I think to have a good understanding on the problem and be part of the solution is very helpful. In the climatic agenda, to understand the problems and the commitment with the governments in front of the big conventions, the neutrality, the climate, and biodiversity. So all of these are the commitments that the governments have. They have to be accountable and to be part of the solution. What we spoke, Angel Murillo, is to scale the public policies. There is strong data in the climate agenda that the vertical funds is we only have 5 or 6% to keep the temperature in 1.5. Now, between the private sector to take on commitments, if everybody doesn't move in, we will lose the war. So how FAO positions with evidence, the area of forestry has many indicators, the carbon market, the part of fisheries, the oceans, of BNG, the national, there's family agriculture. So we have to be part of the solution. FAO has the technical capacity. So for me, from my point of view, we are in a learning process to see how it works and where are the financial flows, what are the resources that are there and that are necessary.
Muchísimas gracias, Renata, y a todos.
Thank you very much, Renata, and all our panelists. We are on time, so a big applause. Thank you very much for your contributions, your vision, the recommendations that you have shared in this session. FAO Transforms in 2025 wants to articulate different areas of work from programming, technical, at the service of the countries of our strategic partners, the work and mobilization of resources, the role of positioning, and the importance of mobilization of financial innovative mechanisms, and this articulation and the role of technical assistance of FAO. We invite you to know more about this of FAO Latin America and the Caribbean. And if you have doubts or comments, you can contact us. I would like to thank the participation of more than 200 people that have accompanied us virtually and in person. And I wish you an excellent day.
Por favor,